will introduce you in Russian.
I trust you.
Don't worry. Any bad words about you. Я хочу представить нашего следующего докладчика, Merlin GORE. Он из компании FlashGameLife, и он расскажет нам о флеш-играх, о небольших маленьких флеш-играх. Давайте его поприветствуем.
Thanks, guys. I have a tendency to talk quite quickly, so if I start, rushing, just wave at me, and I'll probably wave back. So today I'm going to talk about monetizing Flash games, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Flash Game License as well and how we can help you. So a little bit about me. I started as a Flash developer, and I made pretty terrible escape games when I first started. I didn't really know how to monetize them, so I tried to contact quite a few sponsors via email, and I didn't really get any response. I found out about Flash Game License and put my game on there, and was quite surprised when I actually got quite a lot more money than I thought I would get. I contacted the admin and said, I want to help you. After a few months unpaid work, they finally took me on full time, and here I am. So today I'll be talking about FGL. I'm going to say, what we are, what we do, a little background, and then I'm going to go on to talk about how to monetize casual games. And then I'm going to talk about how FGL can help you do that, a little bit about what other services that we offer as well, and then I'll talk about a developer, Spotlight, someone who did really well with us, and then talk about a few stats. So let's start with what FGL is. So basically, we're a Flash game marketplace, eBay for Flash games. For developers, it's an excellent way to showcase your game before you release it. We vet all the sponsors that come on our website, so we can be sure that when you put your game on there and we're showing sponsors your game, it's secure. People aren't going to steal your game, for example. And you don't have to go ahead and email a bunch of sponsors. We do it for you. As soon as you upload your game, there's plenty of sponsors looking at your game automatically. We also take steps to do more for you so that more sponsors look at your game. There's also a huge developer side to our site. There's a massive community of about, we've got currently over 20,000 developers on our website, and if you choose to show them your game, they can help you. They can give you feedback on your game, they can rate your game, they can tell you how to improve it. I mean, they've done it, they know what they're doing. For sponsors, it's a massive directory of games. You go on there and you always need fresh content, and all 20,000 developers are uploading fresh content. It's easily accessible in loads of different sections, and we present it in a variety of ways. Some people have trailers for their games, some people have an array of screenshots, and we've got game agents as well to help you find the games that you want. We've recently started a new account type, players, so if you're a dedicated beta tester, and you just want to play games before they're released, help developers, you can also sign up for that. The main type of game on Flash Game License are casual games. In general, developers who are uploading the games are indie developers, so it's a team of one person in a bedroom, or a small team of 2 or 3. I mean, we've also got a few big teams on FGL. We've actually seen small teams progress to big teams. And what we see is, despite the small production time and cost for Flash games, for these casual Flash games, there's quite a big return on these games, and it can be quite lucrative. So a little bit about the history. Back in 2007, Chris Hughes and Adam Schroner were developers themselves, and they found that the odds against developers, the odds were pitted against the developers. You'd have to email a bunch of sponsors and pretty much beg them to take your game, and they would decide on the price, and there wasn't much leeway, and they decided they wanted to change that. So they set up Flash Game License. We now have over 20,000 developers, as I said. We have over 4,000 sponsors buying games, and to date we have over 6,000 deals made as well. I think the amount of money we've made developers so far is over $9 million, so pretty successful. I talked a bit about the type of game that we get on Flash Game License. They're casual games. Most of them are single player, although we have had multiplayer games and epic MMORPGs come through our site as well. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Async Racing, but that came through us as well. That was a big multiplayer game. And at FlashGameLife, we support the evolution of gaming as well. We actually spearheaded Unity 3D. We wanted to push 3D in Flash gaming, and even if there wasn't a huge demand out there for it, we've actually added support for that. But generally, we don't want to put developers' hopes up. We don't, for example, before Flash Player 11 was released, we didn't want to support it on our site because developers would upload Flash 11 games and they wouldn't be bought. But we do support the evolution of gaming, despite being called Flash Game License. We do support other platforms. We sell mobile licenses as well. So here's a few pictures of a few of the successful games that have come through our site. This is my cue to have a drink of water. So, how do you make money from casual games? Well, we find that on Flash Game License, sponsorship and licensing is a major way to make money. This is how most developers on the site make money. It's actually the most lucrative as well. But I'm going to explain the term for those who are unfamiliar with it. Licensing is pretty much giving your intellectual property, selling it to a sponsor. I mean, there are also licenses where you retain your intellectual property, but you give them your game. I'm going to explain the different types of sponsorships that you can get, but basically you're giving the sponsor permission to use your game and to distribute it with their branding in it. Why do sponsors do this? They want new content. They want to drive traffic to their site. They want to make their site look like the awesome new portal with new games and cool games on it. So they're constantly trying to drive traffic to their site, basically. So there's quite a few different types of sponsorships on FGL that we see. Exclusive has been around since the start of licensing. And before FGL existed, when licensing first started, that was pretty much all you could get. You'd have to, as I said before, you had to beg sponsors for a license, and you'd have to give over your intellectual property to that sponsor. You'd give their game. Most of the time you'd give their source code as well, and you'd never see that game again. You can't sell other licenses. When we started FGL, we also decided to invent a new licensing term that was more equal, and that was the primary license, and you hear that term everywhere now. And that is a more equal terms. You keep the intellectual property of your game, but you sell the game to the sponsor with their branding in it, but you can also sell secondary licenses. I'll talk more about that later. So we also see performance deals cropping up, and these have been quite popular recently. So the exclusive license, I told you about it. You give the IP and the game. You can't sell any other licenses once you've sold an exclusive license to this sponsor. And this sponsor owns the game and the name of the game, so you can't make a sequel unless you ask permission. An exclusive license is usually confined to one website. The reason, from the sponsor's viewpoint, the reason why they do this is they don't want to allow any other portals to usurp the traffic that the game generates. So the game would be locked to their site, and it would push all the traffic onto their site. I mean, this can have two effects. Either because the game is so big, the website gets a massive influx of traffic, but also because the game isn't virally spread, it can actually have a negative effect and not do very well at all, because people can't just stumble upon the game when it's on millions of portals. It's just on one. While exclusive licenses are now the least popular on our site, they still make the most money, because the developer is handing over their intellectual property. Obviously, they want more money for that, and the price for an exclusive license ranges from about a few thousand to tens of thousands. We've seen exclusive licenses go for up to $70,000 on our site. Onto the primary license, and this is the one that's the most lucrative on our site and the most popular. As I said, you sell the game, but not the intellectual property for it. You put the sponsor's branding in the game, and you can sell secondary licenses as well as primary licenses. I'll get on to secondary licenses in a minute. Usually it's a lump sum, and the sponsor will virally distribute that game. From the viewpoint of the sponsor, they're pulling traffic to their site, but allowing other sites to host the game. And these sites that host the game will usually get quite a lot of traffic from the game, but it also encourages traffic to go to the sponsor's site. When a player sees a game on a site, thinks, oh, this is an awesome game, and looks at the who sponsored it and goes, oh, their portal must have loads of these cool games. So that's usually how it works. The price range for primaries is actually quite similar to exclusive licenses, but not as much. Ranges from a few thousand to tens of thousands, up to as high as $60,000. So a secondary license is what follows a primary license. You can sell as many of these as you want. And the way it works is a secondary license is locked to a specific website. So, for example, Addicting Games wants your game, but you've already sold a primary license. What you do is they ask you for a non-exclusive site-locked license. So you'd have to lock the game so it only works on the Addicting Games site, and it will have the Addicting Games branding on it, but they can't distribute it virally. So as you can imagine, the amount of money that you get from a non-exclusive is much lower. It can range from a few hundred to maybe 1,000. I mean, most recently, Steambirds by Andy Moore actually got 7,000 for a non-exclusive, and this was amongst another 14 non-exclusives he got for his game. So you can imagine that it actually brings in quite a lot of money to have non-exclusives as well as a primary license. And you can, as I said, you can sell any number of these. Performance deals are quite popular as well, and it's actually a more risky strategy for the developer, but a less risky strategy for the sponsor. You only get paid based on how well your game does. So this could be the number of clicks your game gets or the number of views. And this is usually capped, so you can't bankrupt the sponsor. But it can be more lucrative, and it might be a risk worth taking. For example, if you have a primary license for $5,000 and a sponsor comes along and says, listen, I'll give you $2,000 now, but I'll give you an extra $3,000 if it reaches 2 million views and an extra 100 every 1,000 views after that. You can imagine that, you know, the price goes up pretty quickly. So apart from licensing, there are other ways you can monetize your game, and this is alternate revenue streams. You can do this as well as your license. Personally, I always put ads in my game. In my games. It's generally a personal choice. A lot of developers think it makes their game look ugly, cheap, and they don't add them. But it's definitely a good revenue stream, and it's a way of getting money without having to do anything. For example, my first ever escape game, which is absolutely terrible, I made it about 5 years ago, and I'm still getting $40 a month just from ads from that game. Ads will usually, you either put them on the load screen or in between levels. It's your choice really, and you'll use suppliers like CPM Staff, for example. The mobile market is growing all the time, and it would be silly not to think about it. But what I like to tell developers is don't make a game thinking you will port it straight away. It's important to know that your game will be successful before you port it to mobile. It can be really expensive to port your game to mobile, but if you do and it's successful, you can make a lot of money. It's an excellent revenue stream. It's an excellent distribution stream as well. There's loads of viewers. If you get featured in the App Store, for example, that's millions of views right there. And for example, I'm going back to Steambirds with Andy Moore. He ported it to mobile, but he wasn't planning to when he first made the game. He made the game, saw that he was getting millions of hits, and thought, I should probably port this. He did, and he went on to make $150,000 just from porting it to mobile. The last revenue stream I'm going to talk about is microtransactions. And when this first came out, it wasn't extremely popular. People were outraged that they had to pay for items in a game. But over time, developers got smarter, and they found that there will always be players who want to be better than the rest. especially in multiplayer games, and there'll be people who will pay for this. So generally, if your game has currency in it, or upgrades, or sellable items, if you can pay for it, and there's an option of being able to pay for it, and there are systems that you can implement that make this easy. For example, we started a company called GamerSafe, which is a massive tool base for developers and makes microtransactions easy. So it's definitely something to think about, but I'll talk about GamerSafe more in a second. So, for being such a good audience so far, I'm going to give you a nice picture and I'm going to have another drink. Okay, so on to what FlashGameLife, how can we help you monetize your game? So I'm going to start with the typical process of what you would do if you were a developer on FGL. So first of all, you upload your game, and the first step, if you allow developers to, is the feedback. When you upload your game, a forum entry will be created for your game, and people can go in there and comment on your game, tell you it's terrible, tell you it's great, give you some advice. And you choose whether to put it up for bidding or not. This is generally quite a big step, and people are always quite scared to do it, because you're putting your game in front of loads of sponsors, and you want them to see your game and think, wow, that's great, I want to buy it. So there's an admin review process before we put it up for bidding to make sure that your game is up to standard, and because we want your game to sell. So the admin reviews your game, and then it goes up for bidding. If it passes, if it doesn't, we tell you what you can do to improve it. We have game agents who know sponsors on the site. They're assigned to specific sponsors, and they know what games they like. And if your game matches their interests, they'll pitch them to it, and gives you a more targeted eyeball. And then your game goes into all our feeds. We've got emails. I'll tell you more about this later. And then after the sale, we've got a gamer shop, especially if you've sold a primary license. We find it extremely important that you sell non-exclusive, so we've got a special section for that as well. I'm going to talk about distribution as well after that. So one of the most important things we find in FGL is the community. We're actually quite proud that we have such a strong community on there. And I think the last time I checked, we're getting over 1,000 posts every week on that forum, and we have developers coming on and asking, oh, how much do you think my game's worth? What is this thumbnail good? What can I do to improve my game? And this sponsor's annoying me, what can I do? And all the developers are there to help you. We've got special forums that only developers can see. We've got forums for sponsors. There's a whole range of places you can post, ask questions, even coding questions. And we've got the whole game rating and feedback system as well. All games have a feedback area, they have rating systems. And we've also got live chat as well, where you can go on and talk to developers. Sometimes we have chat events where sponsors will come on and you can ask them questions and they'll answer everything you need to know. So on to admin review. When there's a game that gets up for admin review, the reviewer is faced with 5 rating aspects, which are all weighted differently. Things like graphics, gameplay, and once they fill in, they have to fill in all those 5 aspects, and they're given a suggested total, which can be changed if they think it's unrealistic. And this gives a really good overview of how well your game would do. And generally, we see a trend on rating and the amount of money that a game gets. So, I mean, we do know what we're talking about, and so you should listen to us when we give you the rating. And if you're not happy, of course, you have a one-to-one with your reviewer. You know who's reviewed your game, so you can ask them what they thought, why didn't they rate it, whatever. And but if you're not sure about your game and you don't really want to put it up for bidding, but you want to know what we think, we have something called a pre-review, where you put up your game and under the understanding that it's not ready for bidding, really. And we get 2 reviewers, different reviewers, to review your game and give you a score. And then they explain this score. And this is a good way of, showing you how well your game's going to do, what you can do to improve. We also have video reviews that we started recently, where we film your game while the reviewer is playing it, so you know exactly what went wrong or what went right. Game agents, I mentioned them earlier. This is a new service that we've started recently, and we assign a member of staff to sponsors. They get to know this sponsor, they know their interests, and they pitch games they know they'll be interested in to these sponsors. Makes the sponsor's life easier because they're getting games that they know they'll be interested in, and developers are getting a more targeted audience for their games. So it's a benefit on both sides. Onto the feeds, we have personalized emails every day that send out the games that are up for bidding, games that are new in the game shop. And we have a newsletter every quarter to tell our members what's going on. We have games that are separated into different sections for sponsors as well. I mean, these sections are really quite variant. Like, for example, we have a hidden gems section where there's a game that we think is awesome, but it isn't getting any bids. We've got things like screenshot browsers, trailers, and loads of different ways to see all the different games. After the sale, we think it's just as important as the bidding. Non-exclusive licensing is an excellent revenue stream, and people undervalue this quite a lot. So we've got a whole different section for post-sale, which is the gamer shop, and this is where your game gets put if once you've sold your primary license. And this will be for fixed prices, so there will be quite a few sections, and you can set your price for each different type, so no ads. And it's also you can use post-sale our site for a portfolio. On your profile you can have your list of games, and you can customize this in different order, and it's a great way to show what you've done. So distribution is extremely important in viral gaming, and a lot of sponsors will do this for you. If it's a really great game, it will distribute itself. But if not, we've got a tool called FlashGame Distribution as well, where we've made it as easy as possible for you to distribute your game. Once you upload your game to FlashGame Distribution or import it from FGL, it goes on thousands of portals automatically. I mean, a lot of arcade scripts take the feed from FlashGame Distribution directly, and it distributes your game for you, basically, making your life easier. So here's another pause. So, other services that we offer to make your life easier. We have first impressions. So, basically, this is automated testing. So, what you do is you order 20 first impressions, and your game gets sent off to 20 different people, real life people, but not necessarily technologically capable people. It would be the kind of target audience that would play your game. And what we do is we ask them to answer a few questions once they've played your game. And this is a really great way to get honest feedback about your game. I mean, we've had some reviews where they just said, "What the hell is this?" And obviously, not all of them are helpful, but it gives you a really good idea of what a real user would find with your game. And a lot of developers are actually shocked at what the response they've got before they've released their game. And it's actually helped a lot of people. I've talked about the community. We think that it's extremely important, and we've got over 20,000 developers always willing to help, and I'll move on. So we've got competitions as well. We used to host this every few months, and basically it's a 24-hour competition where we tell developers when it starts, okay, this is your theme, like growth, for example. Go make a game in 24 hours, and if your game's the best, we'll give you some sort of prize. We've given away Flash before, and things like that. And we found that this is a really good way to jog developers' imaginations. And the great thing about this competition is you can go ahead and sell your game after, maybe after a bit of polish, given that you're only given 24 hours. But some games have become extremely successful. Some people have even made franchises from a game that started on a competition. I don't know if you've heard of Revert to Growth, but it's doing extremely well now, and that was made from a competition. Easy License is a new service that we've started as well, and this Easy License is designed to cut the red tape and to make payments faster and easier. We basically take the position of the middleman for payments between sponsors and developers. A lot of big companies have things like 30 days wait or 90 days wait before they can pay you. And if you're an indie developer paying rent with the revenue that you're getting from the games, you need to get paid faster than 2 months later. So what we do is we take the middleman stance. If it's a big company that we know is going to pay us, we'll pay you straight away, even if we know that they're going to pay us in 90 days. And this makes sure that you get paid for your game quickly and easily, and we'll pay you PayPal or whatever you need. Also, for sponsors, it makes things easier for them because instead of them having to make a contract for every single developer in every single different country, they can just make a contract with us, and we'll make the contract with you, which makes everything a lot easier, cuts through a lot of red tape. GamerSafe, which I talked to about earlier, is a powerful tool for developers, which is full of features. So things like, I mean, the main feature of GamerSafe is microtransactions. It makes it really easy for you to implement microtransactions and sellable items in your game for real money. We've also got universal saved games, achievements, and loads of other features that helps you enhance your game and sell it for more. GamerSafe can also be used on portals. We've recently made a whole GamerSafe portal for Berserk Studios, for example. And so Flash game distribution, I talked a little bit about that earlier. We've got customized feeds, so if you have a portal, for example, and you want only games that are rated 8, we can do that for you. It's really easy, and it's integrated into arcade scripts. It's easy to use. You can just import your game from FGL. And we're almost done. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Andy Moore, who made Steambirds. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's an extremely successful game. Through FGL, he earned $65,000. That was through $23,000 of a primary license. He got a $7,000 non-exclusive, and then he got 4 $5,000 non-exclusives, and then 12 500 non-exclusives, and this was all through the Gamer Shop. He saw the success of his game and decided to port it to mobile. He got 100,000 on iOS and 40,000 on Android, which made him a total of 200,000, which is pretty impressive for a Flash game that he made in 2 months. So a few numbers, just to give you an idea of how Flash Game License is doing. We've made 6,448 deals, that's what I checked yesterday anyway. We've sold about 1,900 games this year. We've made developers over $9 million, and the total sponsorship over 70,000 in one go. So there you go. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you. Yeah. У кого есть вопросы?
I have a question about clicks are counted because amount of clicks counted by sponsor and developer may differ, and do you provide any support in such case?
Personally, we don't provide any support because we don't have any analytics for games. But I mean, what we suggest is either you this is something that you should definitely decide beforehand, before you make the deal. Some sponsors like to use a shared analytics. So, for example, with Mochi Analytics, you can actually share your stats publicly. So you can both view the same stats basically, and that was pretty much proves and that you've got the same stats. Or sometimes sponsors will enforce their own tracking, and obviously you can check that. If they give you code, you can check what kind of tracking they're doing, and you can add your own as well alongside, so you can compare them. But I mean, we personally don't provide support, but we can help you out with how to negotiate with them.
I got a question about other sponsors.
Yeah.
I heard stories that some sponsors were actually banned from FGL. Is that true? And if so, can you share?
Yeah, well, we're there to support developers and sponsors, and we have banned sponsors in the past for not honouring deals. I mean, one of the major problems we were having was a sponsor would make deals with a developer and say, okay, we're bidding on this, we're giving you that much, and then just they keep cancelling the bids. And if they do this for quite a few games, then we get upset and ban them and then tell them why they're banned. And they can, explain themselves and get unbanned, of course. But, I mean, we take steps to protect our developers. We also ban accounts that we think aren't actually sponsor accounts. I mean, sometimes we get people who come along who just want to, for example, steal games or try to, and we don't, we're there to help our developers, basically, so we'll ban them as well.
Hi. Sorry, is it possible to make a game in specific developer tools such as Multimedia Fusion or Stencil Walk, if you know it?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Is it possible to make games in some specific developer tools such as Multimedia Fusion or Stencil Walk, which can make a flash at the end, the same flash, and is it possible to place on FlashGL? Will it be encrypted and safe? And what is the sponsor's opinion about this game, if it's possible? Thanks.
Sorry, can you speak a bit slower?
Okay.
There was a lot of questions there as well.
Okay. First, is it possible to make game in some specific developer tool,
Right.
such as Multimedia Fusion or Stencil Walk, if you
Right.
know about them,
Right.
and place it on FlashGL?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, if it exports as a Flash file, then you can put it on FGL.
And what about crypto safe?
What, sorry?
Will it be safe? You've got a built-in crypto, if I...
Yeah, we do. You can encrypt your game we've actually got an inbuilt encryptor. So, I mean, we always recommend that you use your own encryption, of course. But we do have an inbuilt one where you can... I mean, we always tell you to site lock the game to FGL. So, I mean, if it does get taken from FGL, but we've got loads of security to not allow that. And actually, if someone steals a game, there's a big picture of Eric's face, one of our engineers. But basically, we automatically encrypt the games. You have to check the box, but we do encrypt it. And we always tell you to site lock your game so that it can't be taken away from the site.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody has any questions? Okay.
Did you know that some developers send directly mail to the sponsors? Why developers must use FGL when it takes some proteins from deal?
When it takes some what, sorry?
Percent.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, well, the reason, for those of you who don't know, once you sell the game, we ask for a 10% commission because we helped you get a bigger price for your game. And what you were saying is, when you contact sponsors directly, why should you pay us? Is that the question, yeah? Well, basically, what we say is, we ask for a 10% commission if we increased your price in any way. If you made the deal with the sponsor directly without any interference from us, so if you've got the deal from them and you've put in the bid, they've put in the bid, and nobody else has bid anything, then you don't have to pay the commission. But by putting the game on FGL and having someone else raise that price because of our whole bidding structure, then we say we helped you get that larger price for your game, and therefore we're asking for a commission for that.
Do you have statistic where from the most part of developers from FGL?
Where they come from?
Yeah, from USA, East Europe.
I don't have that right now, but I can have a look after if you want. Did you have another question, Alex?
So you're talking about you being the middleman, you helping increase the price of Flash game. What's your opinion about people who are actually middlemen on FGL, who help other developers get to FGL and take a price off of that? Because that does happen sometimes. I see it happening a lot within the Russian community.
You mean people recommending FGL to people and asking for permission?
No, I mean people actually taking games by indie developers and publishing it under their own FGL accounts.
Right.
So they're essentially a middleman to the middleman on FGL.
Okay.
What's your opinion about it?
Well, I mean, obviously we don't condone that at all unless they've got permission from the developer, the initial developer. But I mean, it's quite difficult to track that kind of thing unless the developer comes to us and checks. But we do have quite a few tools to see whether they've already been distributed, for example. Like we can check the assets in a Flash file and check that it isn't copyrighted and things like that. We have a lot of security in that way. But middlemen to middlemen, it's very hard to track that kind of thing unless we're told. And we are told. I mean, we have a huge developer base, and they generally go, "This game's stolen," or "This game is already distributed," and then we react for that.
Any questions?
Cool.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.